Today's talk is being sponsored by the Phoenix, by members of the Phoenix Community Kollel. I want to thank them, and the schos of Arbosas HaTorah should give them Lilmoid, Ulalamed, Lishmar, Velasois, as Kol Divrei HaTorah Azois, and Mitoich Menuchas HaNefesh, and Brius HaGuf. This week's parsha, the Eila HaMishpatim HaShetosim Lefneihem, begins with the first mitzvah that's mentioned in this week's parsha is Kisikne Eved Ivri Sheish Shonim Yavoid Ubashvi Yetze Lechav Shichinam. So it's the first of the Mishpatim, the first mitzvah that appears in Parshas Mishpatim after the parsha of Matan Torah. After the parsha of Matan Torah is the Mishpatei HaAvodim, the laws of Avdus. Why is that? The Ramban says, Hischil HaMishpat HaRishon BeEved Ivri, Mipnei sheyesh b'shiluach HaEved Bashono HaShvi Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim, HaNizkar B'Dibur HaRishon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu addresses us in the Dibur HaRishon of the Aseres HaDibur, says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Hoitzeisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, and the Mishpat HaRishon is about Eved Ivri, that you send them out Bashona Hashvius, and that's a Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. K'moisha Omar, as the pasuk says in Parshas Re'ei v'zocharto ki Eved Hoyisa be'eretz Mitzrayim v'yifdecha Hashem Elokecha al Kain Anochi Mitzavecha es hadover hazeh hayoim. Well, that pasuk actually appears in the context of the mitzvah of ha'anoket, which is that when you free the Eved, you're supposed to give him mibakorcha, mitzoincha, and various things. And as a reason for that, it says, V'zocharto ki Eved Hoyisa. The Ramban is broadening this and saying that B'chlal the Shiluach Ho'eved Bashono Hashvius is a Zeicher Liyetzias Mitzrayim. In the Dibrois of Parshas V'eschanan, it says with regards to Shabbos, Loisase kol molocha ato vincha uvitecha va'avdecha, and it says Leman yonuach avdecha va'moscha komoicha v'zocharto ki Eved Hoyisa be'eretz Mitzrayim va'yotziacha Hashem Elokecha al kain tzivcha Hashem Elokecha lasis es yom HaShabbos. But here we find out that it's not only on Shabbos that we have the Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim by including the Avdecha v'Amosecha in the Leman Yonuach, but every day of the year, the way we treat our Avodim reflects the Zechira of Avdus Mitzrayim and Geulas Mitzrayim. In other words, in a different nusach, it says in the Midrash Lekach Tov. You know, the Midrash Lekach Tov is written by Rebbe Eliezer, Tuvia Rebbe Eliezer, I think. He lived in the 11th century. He's a contemporary of Rashi and the Rif. But the Midrash Lekach Tov is supposed to be a compilation of Midrashei Chazal. And over there it appears, Kisikna Eved Ivri Posach B'Mishpat Eved Ivri Lefi shehoyu avodim b'Mitzrayim u'fedo'om HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'nosan lohem cheirus lefichach tziva es Yisrael b'rishoina sheloi l'shabed ish ba'achiv b'ferech v'loi l'shabdei l'doros, not to overwork our slaves and not to be mishabed them l'doros ki im ad hashana hashvius shenemar ki avodah heim asher yitzei yoyis meres Yisrael. This is a pasuk in Parshas Bahar. Lo yimochru mimkeres oved lefichach pasach b'mishpat eved ivri. So it's remembering our experience as slaves in Mitzrayim, which gives us the ability to empathize with others that are in an inferior state, and to be sensitive to our avodim, and to treat them with dignity. And this is all part of the V'zocharto ki Eved Hoyisa and now you no longer are a slave. But remember not to treat others as slaves. You know, the Gemara says in Kiddushin, Kol hakoine eved la'atzmoi, ki koine odoin la'atzmoi. Somebody who buys a slave is like he's buying a master. Says the Gemara, why? Because we have a pasuk in Parshas Re'ei, ki toiv loy imoch, from which we learn that imoch b'machal, that your slave has to be equal to you in food, imoch b'mishte. Shaloi tehei ato oichel pas nekiyo v'hu oichel pas kiber. You can't eat better bread than he does. Shaloi tehei ato shoyse yayin yoshon v'hu shoyse yayin chodesh. You'll drink old wine, he'll drink fresh wine. Ato yoshon al gabi muchim. You'll sleep on good pillows. V'hu yoshon al ateven. And Tosfos asks, why is it an Adon Latzma? He only has to be equal. Why is it considered like I'm buying a master for myself? So Tosfos says, the kosher my Adon, dai lios ka Adonai. So Tosfos brings the Yerushalmi, which we don't have, that says the pa'amim ein lo ela kar achas. It could be that I only have one pillow. Im shoychev olav ba'atzmai, einoi mekayim ki toiv loy imach. If I'll sleep on the pillow, I'm not being mekayim ki toiv loy imach. Einoi shoychev olav. If I don't sleep on the pillow and I don't give it to him either, that's midas doim. And koifin al midas doim. Nimtza shal korchoch tzarich limsa la'avdoi. L'hainu adon la'atzmai. There could be a situation where I have to give him more than I have. Because if I only have that one pillow, I have to give it to him and not to myself. Because to give it to no one would be midas doim. So it's koine adoin la'atzmai. So I'm saying to have the ability to treat an eved like this is a consequence of our being in Mitzrayim. And it's part of the spiritual rechush gadol that we took out of Mitzrayim. And that we have this ability, as we know, the pasuk says in Parshas V'eschana that Mitzrayim was the kur habarzel, which is a furnace in which you purify gold, and we were our personality was shaped by our experience in Mitzrayim. So it's no wonder that the first mishpat after Matan Torah, which is Bohitziacho Esa'om Hazeh Mitzrayim Tavdun Esa'Elokim Alahor Hazeh, which is Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Yitzisicha Meretz Mitzrayim. The first mishpat is the mishpat of Avdus. But there's another particular connection between Hilchos Avodim and Yitzias Mitzrayim and Maimed Har Sinai, and that's in the pasuk V'im Omar Yoymar Ha'eved Ohavti Es Adoini Es Ishti Ve'es Bonai Lo Yitzei Chafshi. He doesn't want to leave. The 7th year came and he doesn't want to leave. V'higishoy Adoinov El Ha'elohim. He brings them to Bezdin. V'higishoy El Hadeles Oy El HaMezuzah V'rotza Adoinov Es Oznoi B'Martzeya V'avodoi Lo'olam, which Chazal say means until Yovel. So Rashi brings Uma Ro Oizen Lehirotza Mishari Voran Shibaguf. Why do we bore his ear dafke? Why not some other aver? Omer Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Oizen Sheshamo Al Har Sinai Kili B'nei Yisrael Avodim V'holach V'kono Odoin La'atzmoi Tirotza. An ear that heard in Har Sinai Kili B'nei Yisrael Avodim, which has the meaning Kili only B'nei Yisrael Avodim, and not avodim la'avodim, and he was holach v'kolno odim la'atzmoi. But we're not judging him for that original moicher atzmoi, which was in a time that he was desperate, but on the fact that he's now committed to avdus to the extent that ohavti es adoini es ishti ves bonai lo yitzei chofshi. So he's a kono odim la'atzmoi to that extent. So we say that the oizen sheshama al har Sinai kili b'nei Yisrael avodim, and he was holach v'kono odin la'atzmoi tirotza. Agav, when did we hear in Sinai the pasuk of Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim? Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim appears in Parshas Bahar, in the end of Chumash Vayikra. Now, Mela, according to Rabbi Akiva, that says in Chagigat Avov and in other places that klolois uprotois nemru b'Sinai v'nishnu ba'oyel moyed v'nishtalshu ba'arvois moyov. So all of Torah was said in Sinai. All of Torah. So it includes also the pasuk of Kali b'nei Yisrael avodim. However, according to Rabbi Yishmael, that says Klolois nemru b'Sinai, only the general rules, and the protos were given in oil moed, and v'nishnu ba'arvos moyov. So where did we hear in Sinai the Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim? Now Rashi, l'chora, in the beginning of the parsha, is going Keshitas Rabbi Yishmael, because Rashi says on the Eila HaMishpatim Asher Tasim Lefneihem. Rashi says that Vov Moisif al Inyan Rishon Ma Horishonim Misinai, just like the Aseres Adibris are Misinai, Af Elu Misinai, the Mishpatim are Misinai. Mashma that the rest of Torah is not Misinai. So that probably follows the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. The source of this is in the Mechilta. And the Mechilta is the Mechilta de Rabbi Yishmael. According to Rabbi Yishmael, that all of Torah was not given in Sinai. There's a special statement over here, Vav Moisef al Yerisha, that the Mishpatim were giving in Sinai. So if Rashi is following the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, at least in Parshas Mishpatim, so why is he saying now that Oizen Zusha Shama al Har Sinai Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim? But the answer is simple, because in the beginning of Parshas Bahar it says Vayidaber Hashem El Moshe Bahar Sinai Lemor. And then it says the mitzvah of Shemitah and many other mitzvahs until the end of Parshas B'chukoisai, where it says Eila HaMitzvahs Asher Tziva Hashem Es Bnei Yisrael Bahar Sinai. El Bnei Es Moshe El Bnei Yisrael Bahar Sinai. So the as the Ramban over there explains, that this is really a statement that all the mitzvahs from the beginning of Bahar until the end of B'chukoisai were said in Sinai. So even according to Rabbi Shmuel, that not all mitzvahs were said in Sinai, and he doesn't make that drasha of Ma Inyan Shemitah Eitzel Sinai Ma Shemitah Nemru Kloliseo Proteseo V'Digdukeo Misina Afkola Torah Kula Nemru Afkola Mitzvahs Kula Nemru Kloliseo Proteseo V'Digdukeo Misinai. But at least the mitzvahs that appear in Parshas Bahar and B'chukoisai were said in Sinai, and therefore the pasuk of Kali b'nei Yisrael avodim that appears in Parshas Bahar was definitely said and heard in Sinai. And that's what we're saying, that Oizenzu Sheshama al Har Sinai Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim v'holach v'kona odin la'atzmoi tirotza. So this halacha has a particular connection with Sinai. It also has a particular connection with Yitzias Mitzrayim. As Rashi continues to say, Reb Shimon Oyodorish Mikra Kamin Choimer Manishtanu Deles Umezuzah Mikol Kalim Shebabayis. Why do you do the Ritzia on the Deles or the Mezuzah? Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Deles Umezuzah Shehoyu Eidim b'Mitzrayim Kishe Pasachti Al HaMashkoif V'Al Shtei HaMezuzos V'Amarti Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim v'lo avodim la'avodim v'alach zev v'kona odin la'atzma yiratza b'fneihem. That the Ritzia should take place in front of the Delos and the Mezuzah, over which HaKadosh Baruch Hu passed over the Bata Yisrael as he redeemed us from Mitzrayim. So over here we see that from Yitzias Mitzrayim, from the experience of Yitzias Mitzrayim and Golus Mitzrayim, we learn not only about how to treat others, but also how to treat ourselves. I mean, not to develop a mentality of an Eved and be in a state of ahafti es adoni es ishti ves bonai loy eitzei chofshi. In other words, freedom is not just a right; it's also an obligation. In other words, we are mechuyev to preserve our freedom in order to be able to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's not just that we could be free, but we need to be free, and that's the Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim v'lo avodim la'avodim. But there's a difficulty over here, because according to Rabbi Akiva, we heard all of Torah in Sinai. Even according to Rabbi Shmuel, Shemitah and all the mitzvahs of Parshas Bahar and B'chukoisai we heard in Sinai. The Aseres HaDibros we have other heard in Sinai. So why do we say in particular that Oizen Zusha Shama al Har Sinai Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim v'holach v'kona odin la'atzmoi? Why don't we say Oizen Zusha Shama b'Sinai loisiso Shem Hashov, or whatever, Shem Hashem, which is in the Aseres HaDibros. And he goes and he makes a Shvuas Shov. He's Lois Shem Hashem Lekechol Hashov. Why is he not Yirotza Ba'oznoi? His ear heard that mitzvah too. And if he's over on that mitzvah, any mitzvah that we heard in Sinai, we should have a ritzia if we don't obey that mitzvah. Why do we say that Oizen Zusha Shoma al Har Sinai Kili B'nei Yisrael Avodim V'holach V'kono Odin La'atzmoi? He's Yirotza. What does it have to do with Avdus? Obviously, we see that there's some special connection between the Oizen Zusha Shoma and the Li B'nei Yisrael Avodim, beyond the connection between the Oizen that heard all of Torah, and therefore we should do something to the Oizen. No, the Oizen has a special shaykhis over here, but what is that? You know that the halacha is that if you hurt somebody's Eivarim and the Eivar, you have to make an oimed, you have to estimate, you have to evaluate how much less is he worth now than before to be sold as an Eved. Whereas if you made somebody deaf, there's no need to make an oimed, you have to be noisin to make kuloi, because he's considered worthless. There's a fascinating Rabbeinu Yoina in the Shari Tshuva about this in Shar Hasheni Ois Yud Beis. He says, Oid Omar Olav Hasholem, that Shlomo HaMelech says in Mishlei, Ma'or Einayim Yisamach Leiv. That eyesight makes the heart happy. Shmua Toiva Tidashein Otzem. A good shmua fattens the bones, feeds the bones, nourishes the bones. Oizen shoimas toichachas chayim, an ear that hears toichecho, bekerev chachamim toli. So says the Rabbeinu Yoina, v'yesh l'chol chacham leiv ladas. Ki lo yitochen shechiber shloimoi olav hasholem dvorim betelim ka'ele, chinom betoich divrei amusa v'yiras Hashem. I mean, what's the message? He says, it's not possible that he's not just talking about the mile of eyesight and hearing. B'toich divrei hamusa. B'shekvar heyed olav hakosov. The pasuk says in Malachim about Shlomo HaMelech vayech kam mikol adam, and somebody that smart probably wouldn't insert in middle of his divrei musa v'teichochem something so meaningless. Ochein zeh pesher hadov. This is what it's about. Ma'orei naim yisamach leiv. Ha'ayin ever nichbod boyd. He's saying the eye is a very important organ. Ki voy, ki yiru voyes ha'ma'oreis ha'mesamchem esalev. Because you can see ma'oreis, and that's mesamech esalev. However, v'nichbod mimenu ha'oisen. More important is the ear. Ki yishmu boy shmua toiva, ha'medashenes eso etzem she'ein boy ha'argoshe. It accomplishes so much that even an etzem that is not a bar hargosha, nevertheless it gets nourished from a shmua toiva. V'lo yedushan b'ma'orei nayim bilti b'tainug yesem. V'chein amru zechronim levrach. Ki ha'oizen nichbad mishar ha'yivarim. Shem sima eseino. If you made somebody blind, noisen like me'eino, you just pay for the eye. But chirshoy, noisen like me'kul. V'chein ha'adam. So why is this so important for us to know? V'chein ha'adam chayev la'avidas Hashem yizborach be'ivarav v'yitzurav kulam ki la'avidas ha'yitzoram. A person is supposed to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom with all his Eivarim, K'moishe Kosuv Koil Poal Hashem L'maneu, Af Ki Be'Eivarim Hanichbodim Asher Yotza Boy Nischayev Lavi Behemes Yotzon. V'oinish Hagodol Yeser Mo'oid Im Yafriye Mimaisem Mitzvoisav Avoid Olo Yavid Behem, etc. Ki Hashem Heitiv Imoy Bechushav Hanichbodim Toiva Atzuma V'Kovayd V'Hoda Itre Behem. And therefore, Shlomo HaMelech is saying, Al Kain hiktim lahazkir achas mimayloi sa'oisen. Ba'avur haroischo goydel chavis avidasi, because the oisen is so important, so it means that avodas Hashem through the oisen is the most important. Ubir achrei kain, ki tia avodas oisen b'shmoya ela toichachas. V'omar oisen shoymas toichachas chayim b'kerev chachomim tolim. Pirush, ro'ui lishkoim ben hachachomim achrei asher yakshiv l'toichachtom. For Omru Zechronim Levracha, there's a medrash in Parshas Yisroi. Nofal Adam in Agag v'nishbaru Eivorav. Somebody fell off the roof and his Eivorim broke. Tzorich retio v'tachboishes al kol eiver ve'eiver me'eivorav ve'etzem me'atzamav. V'achoite ha'shechota b'chol Eivorav v'nechshav kilu rob samaka be'eivorav kulam mikaf ragloi v'askot kodoi as if it's steht mit kaf regel v'adroi shein b'Mitzrayim. V'hine HaKadosh Baruch Hu merapi kol eivora b'ritiachas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu heals the sinner with one ritia, with one patch. V'hi shmias ha'oizen. Shenemer hatu oznechem u'lechu elai shimu u'schinavshechem. Anyway, the Rabbeinu Yoina is saying that the koyach hashmiya is the most important. Koyach hashmiya is the most important. It's more important than seeing, and he has a klar raya because it says, we just we estimate how much less he's worth, but we don't pay mekuloi. But there's a problem l'chora because we have a Gemara in the Dorim Daf Samach Daled that says that asuma is choshev kemes. Asuma is choshev kemes. Now we don't find anywhere that a cheresh is choshev kemes. So it would seem that seeing is more important. Probably most people, if you would ask them what's more important, I mean, if they would be more upset if they would lose their hearing or lose their sight, their eyesight, they would say that their eyesight is more important than their hearing. And B'chlal, there's a steer because we say Suma Chashiv Kemes and we say that Chirshoy Noisin Like Make Kuloi. So what l'chora we need to say is that since the way we make the oimed for nezikin is according to how much less he's worth to be sold as an eved, so therefore chirshus is mekuloi, because what's an eved about? An eved is about taking instructions. An eved is about hearing and listening. Seeing is really about seeing for yourself. A ben chayrin needs to see for himself. I mean, literally and figuratively, because the pshat is that the einei aseichel, the way I see it. But an eved, it's preferred that he obeys blindly. He just listens and carries out instructions. Therefore, when it comes to an eved, how much less is one worth to be sold as an eved? The chirshoy is nice life mekula. Whereas the simoi, it's he's worth less, but he didn't lose his value completely. And so suma chashiv kemes is about a ben chayrin, but chirshoy nice mekuloi is about an eved, So we say that kili b'nei Yisrael avodim means that we are meant to use our koyach hashmiya for li b'nei Yisrael avodim, to hear and listen to the Rebbeinu Shalom. But when one oizen zusha shama al har Sinai kili b'nei Yisrael avodim v'holach v'kona odain la'atzmoi, so he's abusing the koyach hashmiya, because the koyach hashmiya is meant to be dedicated to li b'nei Yisrael avodim. And when he dedicates it to an odain that he's koina la'atzmoi, he's undermining the oizen, the function of the oizen, the role of the oizen, the mission of the oizen, and therefore the oizen is yiratza. Whereas other mitzvahs, true, we heard them through the oizen, but being over on those mitzvahs doesn't undermine the ikir function of the oizen, which is for li b'nei Yisrael avodim. This is really also true in another way. If you live a life of purpose, the question that we ask ourselves is not what do I need most, but what am I needed for most? So whereas you live a life without purpose, then all you focus on is what are my needs? So in terms of my needs, it's true that eyesight is a greater need than hearing and listening. Whereas in terms of what are you needed for, the pshat is that in that realm, avada, listening and having the ability to hear and being given direction and being taught is the most important thing in order that you should be able to carry out your mission and realize the goals that you are here for. So the pshat is that's really the difference between the ben chayrin, who is li b'nei Yisrael avodim, because what's the real meaning of li b'nei Yisrael avodim? Li b'nei Yisrael avodim is about is about serving the Rebbeinu Shalom as a ben chayrin, and Mamela in that context. I mean, the Shmiya is the Oizen Zusha Shoma al Har Sinai, and the Eibush is that we should all have a good Shabbos,